What's up, YouTube? Coming back with another video. Oftentimes I gotta call into question the tradition of men. And the reason why I call in question of these tradition of men because where did these traditions of men come from? Were Negroes included in these traditions? The traditions that was handed down that we worship as a people. Sometimes I gotta question YouTube, like, are we really a people? Are we really a people? Or we just, you know, of the same complexion, just so happen to get along or trying to get along with each other. But sometimes I call into question the tradition that we follow. And the same tradition I'm talking of is of men, is of men of another ethnic. These are the traditions that was handed down to us for years. Traditions that was handed down to our forefathers. These are the traditions that I'm talking about. Some things that our free forefathers wasn't accustomed to. Just like a hand in marriage in the Western culture, in the Western tradition. When a man seeks a wife in the Western um, culture or tradition, he uh, he finds her, he wine and dines her, or as they say, I forget the word now. But when a man in the Western world finds a woman that he's attracted to, that's attracted to her beauty or whatever that he's attracted to, he finds this woman, he chases this woman, dates this woman, spends his hard earned money on this woman, and decides that he wants to make this woman his wife. He buys a ring. It could be expensive or it could be less expensive, but he buys her a ring. When the time is right, he buys the ring, put it in this box, and he gets down on one knee. He bends his knee down to the ground. He bends his knee as to say that he's begging. He's begging this woman to be his wife. Even in the olden days, when a man finds a woman, marries her, fall in love with her, and she take on his last name, he take care, provide, will lay down his life to protect this woman that he married, that he's in love with. Hell, he gave this woman his last name, you know, gave this woman his kids, his 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 heir, or the kids from his loins. He chose this woman to give birth to his kids. his foundation, his empire, his future. He chose this woman to provide for her, take care of her, and protect her with his life. So why is this man on his knee? Why is this man on his knee begging her for her hand in marriage? Why is he begging her to provide for her? Logically, it seems to me she should be on her knees, calling him Lord, asking him to marry her. Because she is the one that's carrying her, or she is the one that's carrying his last name once the marriage ceremony happens. She should be blessed that she was chosen by this king. I don't think that makes the woman any lesser or desperate for marriage. If you ask these women today, it's 2020. If you ask these women today, some of them, I'm not saying all of you, but some of these women today, if you ask their opinion, if a woman gets on her knees and ask a man for marriage, they say that she's desperate. They call this woman desperate. This is what some of these today's women would say. Oh, she's desperate. She's on her knees begging a man to marry her. Oh, the Bible said that when a man found a wife, he finds a good thing. You know, that's when they use the scripture. That's when they use the scripture all day long. If a woman, bend her knee, asking a king or asking a man that she sees worthy, when she bends her knee to ask him for marriage, she's desperate. To me, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem logical to me at all. So, according to some of these women logic, if the woman is desperate, asking a man to marry her, then what is the man? What that makes the man if he bend his knee and ask a woman that he has to provide for, obligated to provide for her and her children, and he's on his knee begging her to marry him, then what that makes him? Does that make him desperate? Does that make him weak to get on his knee? He worked all his life to build his kingdom, to build his empire. Then he gets on one knee to ask this woman to marry him. Does that make him desperate? Let's make this shit make sense. A man is 40 years old, worked half his life to build his so called empire or his so called kingdom. He built his house from the ground up. You know, the man got good credit. He worked most of his life being responsible, built his house from the ground up. You know, got a nice paying job. He's not struggling to pay his mortgage because He did everything right for his business, where he don't have to struggle, where he don't need her money for anything because he can take care of all his needs and her needs, even take care of the kids' needs. Even if he died and left his empire to her and the kids, why should he get down on one knee and ask anything? Does that make him desperate? When he's the independent one, you know, he's independent, he's powerful far as his home, his bills paid. He doesn't need her money or her income. She can just come in and kick her feet up, you know. Why should he get on his knee and beg her to marry him? Does that make him desperate as well? People talk of tradition, especially these women, you know. They speak of old tradition, how things used to be. No, but back then, women didn't really have no power in the home because they were housewives. Even if the women did have a little income, they still knew their position. They still knew how to keep their mouth shut in the household where there wasn't any conflict or any confusion because she knew that man was the authority of the house, even though she had her money. I can see a man now in this pale face tradition. I can see a man, maybe, I can see a man getting on his knee and asking for that woman's hand in marriage because she didn't bring any conflict. She ain't bring no mouth. She didn't bring rebellion because she let that man rule his house like the man's supposed to rule his house and his kingdom. So I can understand in that fashion, in that order, why a man would get on bending knee and ask this woman for her hand in marriage. Most of you don't know what marriage is today. You know, marriage is property. If you women come into this man's home, come into this man's castle, come into this man's kingdom, and take on that man's last name, you are his. You are his, and the kids is his as well. You have his last name. We can take it all the way back to slavery. When the slave would come to the plantation and they would take on their master's last name. They were property. Most of you don't know what marriage is. Like the book says, man, love your wife, and for the wives to only be obedient to their husbands. That's the order of things. How can you, as a wife, come into this man's home and be disobedient and- to this man's orders? He's the head, he's the boss, he's the husband. What he says goes. Of course, you have your opinion, but what he says goes. Just like an employee and an employer, if you come into this man's job and he's paying you for your services, you must obey your employer. If not, you will lose your job. Point blank. You know I ain't lying. Some of these wives today will go to their employer, will obey the employer just to keep her job, just to keep her so-called independence. She will obey this employer, get off the employer's job or plantation, then will come home to her husband's empire or establishment and be disobedient. You know I ain't lying, people. You know I ain't lying. That's why I don't really get this new age bullshit, man. Like they want to be married, they want the expensive wedding, they want the most extravagant wedding so they can brag about it to their friends, but they don't want the wife duties. The wives don't want to submit themselves. They'll say, "Well, why should I follow this man if he can't lead?" That's the excuse they use. Why should I follow this man if he can't lead me? Because you don't want to be led. You don't want to be led. You want to do what you want to do in this marriage. This man can't lead me. He can't lead me properly. So you want to lead yourself, which I can understand and respect. If you want to lead yourself, women, then stay out of a marriage. Don't come into this man's kingdom if you're not trying to be led. So now you in this man's kingdom trying to lead yourself. Then you're causing confusion and chaos. Then you find yourself arguing with your husband. But yet you'll go into the employees or the employer's establishment following orders because you know you will lose your job. So therefore you submit and you humble yourself to your employer. Even if you are underpaid, but you will submit to your employer. That's all a husband is. He's your employer. He's there to guide and lead you. If you felt like this man couldn't lead you, then why marry him in the first place? You don't want to be led because you know the system is there to bail you out. That way you'll be rebellious. Just like alimony. Doesn't make sense to me. Alimony doesn't make sense to me, nor child support makes sense to me. If you married to this man and you divorce this man and you no longer want to be with this man, then why accept alimony? Why take this man's money? If you tired of this man and you want to leave this man and divorce this man, then leave him. Leave him and his money behind. You can't divorce nobody and take their money every month. Talking about you need alimony and you need child support. So therefore, you never left that man. There is no divorce. There's no such thing as a divorce. You said the vows. You said till death do us part. So that means you're married forever. Yeah, I said it. That means you're married till someone dies. Because you said until death do us part. But here's this government that will allow you to divorce this man. that took care of you for 20 years, the government will allow you to leave this man. Then once you leave this man, you can take half his money, or he's paying you alimony. So therefore, you still married to this man. You just separated, living in different houses that's being funded by this man's money. So that man had every right to fuck you whenever he want to, because you got his money, living off his money. See how this shit don't make sense? She can take this man's money and go to another man with this man's money. Doesn't make sense. So why should a man get on his knees to ask any woman for her hand in marriage when she got the upper hand, when she got the advantage in the marriage in the first place, according to this law of the land, according to the Western standards? She has the upper hand in the marriage. So why should a man get on his knees and ask her for anything? She should be on her knees asking him. If the woman is desperate for getting on her knees, according to some women out here, they said a woman is desperate for getting on her knees asking a man to marry her. And we use scripture or use the book to say when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing. But when you come back with the book and say a wife obey your husbands, shit, they ignore that. That's how you know you live in a fucked up system. And if you go back in if you go back in Bible time, if you go back in the book's time, there was no marriage license. It wasn't a third party. It wasn't a contract. A man would find a woman and sleep with that woman, take her virginity, and he would take care of that woman, and that was his wife. That's how it was in Bible time. It wasn't no third party. But in today's time, you got a third party, which is the government. You got to sign this contract with this woman. She can have your kids, spend time with you 10 years or so. When she get tired of your ass, after she invested her time in you, after she invested her time, gave you kids, if she can finally say, I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of living in this man kingdom. It's time for me to go. And she'll take half your shit. That's not a marriage. That's an arrangement. That's a contract. That's a business. And most of us living according to pale face standards and tradition. That's why that Negro marriage is not working today. That's why some of these women out here are single. Single women having kids without a husband. This is not our way. It never was our way.